Alright guys, we're quite to Valorant news. Huge surprises at the Valorant World Championship in Paris. The pre-tournament favourites PaperX eliminated in 4th place in a shock result today, and that was not the only shock result that's come out of the World Championship today. Huge reaction to what's happened on the upper side as well. NRG now find themselves as the favourites for this whole tournament. How did that transpire? What is the reaction to it? But especially, what's the roster drama that's cooking behind the scenes as well? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Second video of today. I might not do one tomorrow morning just because my time in Europe, the finals start very shortly after. Indeed, I might be able to get another video done recapping things tomorrow night. But let's go into things because a lot has happened today. Firstly, the following. Team RAD, not too familiar with, but this is another classic scenario of a team that's qualified for Ascension, or just let's say a challengers team in general being relatively poorly managed. This should not be a surprise. This is always going to be the case. There will be organizations in tier 2, sometimes even tier 1, but in tier 2 that are not great organizations. It turns out that they violated the ownership policies. Exactly what that means, right? Do not go into detail. But they confirm that therefore that team will not be able to play at the EMEA Ascension tournament, and that Job Life are going to take their spot instead. Now, I think the real controversy about this, look, the organisation, these things happen, right? It's unfortunate. There will always be questionable actors. We don't know the full story behind it anyway. What we do know is the players of that team have been screwed over. And it's incredibly unfortunate. And I think that Riot do need to think about the way that they handle things going forwards, right? Because yes, the idea is those players play for an organisation that turned up to Ascension from their region, but it feels so unfair to the 5 players who have qualified for Ascension with that organisation that because their org screwed them over and Riot are now kicking that organisation out, the players get screwed as well, right? I mean, as the player here, Schneider, says, he spent months away from his family chasing my dream to try and qualify through Ascension, and now that opportunity has been totally taken away from him because his organisation screwed up, Riot kicked them out, but they're not allowing the players to play under some other banner, right? I feel like that would be the better solution in these scenarios, is to allow the players to still play, call themselves something else. Of course, they don't want to be in a situation where organizations are bidding to try and, get those players onto their teams, then they can try and finance an Ascension team that goes through. Riot don't really like that idea, but there's got to be a better solution. You've got to field and screwing over the players like this. That's update number 1. Update number 2 is on the roster stuff. Apparently, Gentlemate to have a head coach. Paco is going to be joining. That's all we're going to spend time on for now. Of course, they will try and confirm a roster in due course. Na'Vi, they're cooking a couple of things as well. Na'Vi, we think of bringing in Angel, who used to play for them, but as their head coach now. As a result, they're rebuilding their team. Reportedly, Shao, Ruxic and Hero are looking to stay. Angel, of course, will have a pretty good idea as to what he wants to do with that team if he was the leader, but he is potentially still the leader, but just now the coach. Elixic, therefore, is out of there. But the big news that came out this afternoon was around Heretics. They, of course, eliminated from the tournament earlier than they would have liked, and yeah, they did win the Esports World Cup in remarkable fashion, but when it really mattered, they failed to deliver, and it is inevitable that these teams will make changes, right? And people really love to think that the teams that get eliminated early won't change for some reason. It just very rarely happens like that. And the reality is that if MRBR are making serious changes, if Heretics are making serious changes, then there will naturally be questions asked on Sen, for sure, but also G2, among others, right? Even some of the teams that are still left in the tournament. I would not guarantee by any means that they are staying together for next season necessarily. Even PaperX, as we'll get into, there might be some conversations to be had, but with PaperX, of course, they made a change earlier and it paid off. They won an international, but I think many thought they were going to go one step further here. But apparently Mini Boo is on his way out the door, which is of course pretty controversial, very interesting because of the Mini Boo thing. You might have thought, well, you got to kind of keep both of them, but look, maybe not, right? Maybe Heretics, the players, look, Woot's just the better duelist in that role. I don't think that Mini Boo is maybe consistent enough. Who knows, right? But they've got to change something, you would think. I know that teams often say, oh, well, whatever happens at Champions, we're going to stick it out. I never really believe that, because whatever the team says behind the scenes, the players decide things, and the players may feel differently. So some discussion on this. Miniboo likely to be gone. Woot, Rienz, Boo and Benji Fishy potentially to stay. Who knows what they're going to do from there. But some questions on their plans. There's some rumours around Keiko. We'll see what Heretics cook up, if it's only a one-man change, if it's a little bit more. Rocket Bullets was cooking up to try and think about where Miniboo might go. Could there be a future on Na'Vi? Something at least to keep in the back of your mind. But let's talk about the matches of today, because Oda Pixel, he was doing his watch party for Valorant. He was pretty mind-blown, of course, at the Boaster walkout here. He was like, you know what, I'm going to be supporting NRG in this series. FNATIC came into this series as the favourites for the tournament, right? Now, I said earlier today, I don't know, it's really interesting, these playoffs. I genuinely felt like NRG could do it. FNATIC were still the favourites, but like, this whole run over the last couple of months, it's been clear that NRG are not a team to count out. Even if they don't look good enough, they're very gritty. They can win any series they're in. But of course, against FNATIC, they weren't going to be the favourites. Alpha had returned. Doma had stepped in the other day. They'd beaten PaperX. So on paper, you're thinking, damn, FNATIC are going to be pretty godlike. They're going to come in here against NRG. Alpha's back in the team, and they're going to deliver. But it's always not necessarily as easy as that, right? And NRG, clearly for some time, not a team to overlook at all. And not only have they got gritty players, but they've also got a world champion, right? Like, that is one key thing to keep in mind. That Ethan is a world champion, one of the only world champions that were left in the tournament. Well, even when Aspas was gone, the only world champion left in the tournament. He's won it before, and now he's back in another grand final. So the watch party was very entertaining. People were saying that Ona was playing it also, watching the watch party at the same time. But FNATIC get 2-0'd by NRG. And look, again, it's Brock, sometimes on the Odin, delivering a masterclass. But look, the Ascent was 14-12. It went to an overtime. FNATIC's map pick, eventually they go down. Great map for FNATIC this season. Wasn't quite enough when it mattered against NRG. And the Abyss was just horrific, honestly. This was incredibly impressive, I thought, from NRG. They dominated the attacking side. Again, FNATIC will look back at that Ascent and see some rounds where they probably could have done a better job, but on the Abyss they just got absolutely slammed. Bosa dropped 3 frags in the end. Alpha did not have a great return series, right? He was dead bottom of the scoreboard when it comes to rating, and, he did comment on it after the series and say, I trolled today, it was hard to focus after a long break, lower final tomorrow. Look, they're not out of it yet. They could still potentially win this tournament. I wouldn't put it past them to do so. But NRG today looked pretty devastating, and as Boaster says, just wanted more games on the big stage. Crowd was sick of a lot of fun. We know what we need to do. So not over yet for FNATIC, but it is over for another team that we'll get to. But NRG, like, what a run they've had. It does coincide, let's be honest, with Shanks leaving NRG. He was on NRG, they were struggling, he left. It's also pretty funny to look back on what's happened this season, because you guys remember all the drama when Chet was around and FNS was around with NRG. There was talk about, well, Bonkar and Verno, right? And then it turned out that Verno and Bonkar, that they were both out of the picture. Eventually FNS gets pushed or steps away from the team. Verno goes on to get top 6 of the World Championship with MIBR, and Bonkar has now coached this NRG team to a grand finals. It's quite the turnaround in form, but I feel like ever since the start of their turnaround, we've seen glimpses of potential. What impresses me about NRG is that every series they play, they just seem to get better and better, and I really like the attitude as well, right? There's no getting ahead of yourselves here. Brock is like, grand finals next up. Scuba says one more game. They're keeping it nice and calm, nice and cool, calm, collected, with the exception of Som, really, but this is what he's like. Bro, you'll see in this grand finals bout. I love you, Crashies. I know we're going to get a rematch. We will see about that one, and you couldn't make it up, could you? We talked about it earlier today. He's done it again. He's done it again. He tweeted it out. Would you lose? Nah, I'd win. So, what do you think is going to happen? He spawns into the server. PaperX are like, well, it's been fun. Jing gave it a go. I mean, this is a pretty remarkable situation, down 12-7, and all of a sudden, Jing pulls out a remarkable 1 versus 3 here on the Lotus to give them at least a chance to get to the Corrode for the decider. But that's not how it went. DRX, I mean, what to say, right? Like, they had all this drama going into the tournament. We wondered if they were even going to get here. They nearly didn't even qualify because Talon was so close. Talon, honestly, they should have won that series at the playoffs. They had plenty of chances. They lost. Therefore, DRX qualified. And yeah, High and Min has been on fire. But Freeing has played great as well. They brought in Bayon back in, Flashback, Mako. Look, I liked some of their iterations with Foxy9 and stuff, but, you know, this iteration has been spectacular. Patman had a stinker, Something did his tweet had a stinker. You know, it happens, but it's not meant to happen on the bigger stage. I didn't think, after PaperX went down to losers, losing to FNATIC with a sub, especially after NRG then beat the main FNATIC team, you know, my feeling was that PaperX probably aren't going to have what it takes to win this tournament. I still thought they would probably have enough to get past DRX, just a great regional matchup, but yeah, DRX, what a run that they've made. And again, PaperX, it's interesting, isn't it? Like on the biggest stage at the World Championship, there has been a failure to deliver before, and they did finally get over the line this year for the Pacific. But, and look, maybe a Pacific team is still going to do it, right? I mean, this year was pretty dramatic. T1 won at the start of the year, then the, you know, PaperX took it in Toronto. Maybe a Pacific team is still going to do it, but it's not going to be T1 and it's not going to be PaperX. It could be DRX, the Lotus eventually 13H. Jing won that miracle round, but in the end, that of course was not enough. So PaperX bow out. Again, from top to bottom, I guess if you'd have told them before the year started, this was the year they were going to have, they probably would have taken it, right? At least they, you know, they won a tournament. But the matter in which, you know, the manner in which they lost, Alex, Mini Jake, of course, and also the players, not particularly happy with the way that things concluded this event. High and Min says, wow, 2-0 win, feels surreal to play. Shanks buff, and well, we can have a quick look here at Shanks' profile picture because we can see where that one is going. The Jing says 0-2, thanks for the support, sad we couldn't win, champs will go further, see you next year. So wonder what PaperX will do. They'll probably look to stick it out. I could certainly understand it, but again, biggest tournament of the year. They've had this time, or they had this opportunity a couple of times now, and it's not worked out. But look, they always put on a good show for the fans, that is for sure. Pretty remarkable. Jing tweeted out a picture of Shanks with DRX, but we also got High and Min tweeting out a picture of Shanks in the PaperX jersey. So really, there was only going to be, you know, Shanks in both jerseys. Who knows what's going to happen, right? They did win Toronto this year, PaperX, but still, the way that what really matters is the biggest tournament at the end of the season. So these are your top three teams. Certainly not the top three that I would have had going into the tournament. And in hindsight, that Group C, or whatever it was, with Edward, Liquid, NRG and DRX, looks rather nice in hindsight. Now, we do have a rematch on our hands, because FNATIC and DRX, they played in the first round. FNATIC took them down 2-1. But now it's a best-of-5 rematch to see who plays NRG in the Grand Finals. Mega matchup coming tomorrow, and then, well, who knows who's going to win this tournament? Could Ethan be the first double world champion? Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.